Yes, yes. Welcome to the ancient world of tabletop games. I am Agamemnon from the historical documentary Time Bandits. This is a report from a fugitive. In my video on how to buy board games, I warned of the perils of buying games without first purchasing shelves. You'll need bookcases for your board games and additional bookcases for all the game expansions. There's a call for even more shelving if you decide the basic game doesn't hold the components in an organized fashion. Those extra shelves hold the plastic boxes you buy in. I also went into detail on how to buy board games. Time to revisit the topic and go into finer detail on purchasing boxes full of cardboard bits and pieces. What are the consequences of buying board games? Loss of space, familiarity with wooden components, the finish on a card deck, and a greater understanding of the universe down to the very particle level itself. And that is a board gaming fact. Research. I looked for a type of game to mention on the channel. In this early phase of video production, I'm still talking about game topics. What is a dice tower? Why are players like that? What is a legacy game? The next phase includes gameplay. I'll manage those gameplay videos here on this table for international players. The international format rules out certain types of games. No Jenga and no Monopoly. Jenga is barred purely for being a dexterity game, and Monopoly is barred for not being a game worth playing, ever. That's another board gaming fact. Oh, Monopoly sells year in, year out, but the game is no longer Monopoly. It's branded Monopoly, Game of Thrones version, original Monopoly, classic, menthol, spearmint, gluten-free, Star Wars. With more than 1,000 variants available, you too can spend hours agonizing over which of the many copies you simply flat out fucking refuse to buy. What can't I play on the channel? There are obvious answers. Is it easier to say what I can play on the channel? That's not quite clear-cut. There are games I'd call borderline, which shouldn't really be playable internationally, though I've come up with a few ways around that. One example is this Star Wars game, Empire vs. Rebellion. It's a variation on card games that have a rule for going bust, Pontoon 21 or Blackjack, say. Two players battle for control of a Star Wars-themed event and play cards to a numerical limit. For international play, this type of game wouldn't work from a single deck with hidden information, unless I dealt the other player's cards to a card holder with a camera feed that I couldn't see. But there isn't a single-player deck. The game relies on a Rebel deck and an Imperial deck. That's why there are two copies of the game. I'll ship one copy over the water. For ease of filming, I manage the table here and let the overseas player choose a side, Rebel, Imperial. Then that player runs the chosen deck over there, revealing choices as we go. I have the duplicate cards handy for filming at this end. As a system, it leaves a few points to be desired, but I think we'll get by when the time comes. My research led me to pricing. The game was under $5. I ordered 2 copies and turned to my small hit list of games. There are around half a dozen games or expansions on that list. I wait months for the games to appear commercially, or wait longer for a sale, a price crash, maybe a damaged box surfaces with money off. Yes, I picked up a game with a damaged box discounted as a result of the bash. You take a couple of L-shaped brackets and clamp them in place for the glue session. The repair is near invisible and no harm's done. On my small hit list of games, I found a few candidates available and all from the same retailer. All available at the lowest price on the internet. The stars aligned and I pounced. One postal charge to rule them all. A discount threshold, lowest prices and cash off for good measure. Here, take this money. All thanks to Star Wars and its blackjack variation. I blame Star Wars for all that board game spending. Yes, I'd have bought the games anyway, so why not in one parcel, at a saving? But I still blame Star Wars. Yes, I bought a game for under $5, but the overall cost was higher. There's a terrible price to pay in terms of space. I have the shelves, though. What are the consequences of buying a bunch of games. Walking out of a shop, I'd stumble under the weight of a massive game, or I'd stroll out with a few related expansions in my pockets. Maybe I'd have a decent-sized game in my bag. That's supporting a game shop out in the wild. The internet is different. I can click my way out of an online place with half a dozen games on the way to me. The immediate consequence of the purchase is my war with the evil cellophane when the parcel arrives. Every game is unwrapped and checked for components. If the game fits neatly in its own box, I'll remove the components from their cardboard frames and stash those frames under a box insert, provided there is one. Sometimes there's no way to store the frames in a box, and they have to wave farewell to the game. I cover the arcane business of punching out cardboard in another video. A glance at the rules of each game, and I'll check to see if anything is missing, or rarely, note something added by accident. Game companies will put a few spares in there if their production run allows. When it's clear that a game must float free of its cardboard frame moorings before setting sail, and that the loosened game won't sit comfortably in the original box, I'll make decisions on extra storage. Of these games, only Festo could do with a transfer to a compartmented plastic box. Star Wars has a stack of cards and a few counters. Wakening Lair, Professor Evil, and Solenia all have an inbuilt organizer of sorts, though Solenia's is pushing it. I note any unusual features of the games that come in. Onitama was the first game I bought with a magnetic clasp built into the box. Wakening Lair takes that a bit further with its pretend book look. Storing games like these on shelves isn't difficult, but I'll wrap the games up securely for travel when making gaming house calls. You can trust a magnetic clasp, though you should never trust a magnetic clasp. That's more about the risk of compromising data storage than dealing with loose components flying everywhere. Watch what you pack in your bags, folks. Unhatched dragon eggs are a pain in the arse if left in a bag next to a radiator. Was there anything noteworthy here? Professor Evil is so evil that he designed the tightest-fitting game box lid in all of creation, and he has a time machine, so he's been from one end of the universe to the other and knows his evil stuff. You'll find you might want to store the more fragile game components separately. If you can't quite fit the box lid down snugly over a game with hard plastic bits and pieces, then that game has to sit at the top of the stack. Yes, I stack games on shelves. I don't store them up on their sides. That is the way of the barbarian, and we have no truck with it here. You may see games on their sides for video purposes, but that's only for video purposes. We're not savages, unless we're playing savages. The point that's most likely to come up when checking a bunch of games is the expansion thing. Far-minded game designers will build the main game box around the idea of fitting a later expansion inside the basic game. And that's okay. Hell, it's more than okay. Your collection of games is known inside and out by you, but I wonder what a strange gamer struggles with when walking around the shelves. So many of my games are split across the main box and a plastic storage container. These are almost together. The exception is 2nd edition Arkham Horror, which has its own bookshelf and postcode. Arkham Horror isn't instantly accessible as a game. Should I be concerned that it isn't instantly accessible in the physical sense? I'm advising caution to new players. Make sure your game is easily accessible when you make house calls as the board game doctor. Once the game is in the main box, plus a storage box, pack everything before you head off into the teeth of a gale. The Fortune and Glory box doesn't hold anything from the game at all now. I packed it all up in portable storage, the kind with handles on for ease of travel. Yes, I think about how to get the game out of the house as soon as it comes into the house. With Festo, all I need do is purchase yet another compartmented piece of plastic, and I'm ready to go. Star Wars sent me into a miniature spending spree. The result is always the same. Question: how to store these boxes on the shelf and in my handy game bag for the house calls. Note that I mean boxes. There is a crime against gaming, and that crime is placing games inside tins. Games are not shortbread selections. Note to game designers: if your game fits in a pack that stores cards, for your game is a card game, all is well with you. Go in peace, enlightened ones. And if your game fits in a box with an abundance of loot, you are blessed with the grace of the gods themselves. Journey far, and journey well. But woe unto ye, should heresy befall thy bloodline, for there will be much weeping and gnashing of game components. Thou shalt not place your game inside a fucking tin, For is your game not shortbread? That's right, your game is not shortbread, so don't treat it like shortbread. Don't put your game in a tin. Hell, you don't even need to put shortbread in a tin. Why would you put a game in a dented metal coffin? This sort of bad behaviour brought about the fall of Atlantis. Though that is a story for another video.